to introduce our last but not least speaker, Mr. Keith Muller, the Chief Executive Officer for Atlantic Lithium.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you to Paydirt for the opportunity again this year to present at ADU conference. I'm here today to talk to you about Atlantic Lithium, a company that is positioning itself ready for the rebound of the commodity cycle. Today, lithium prices is at a 3-year low, and if we look at the cost curves of all-in sustaining cost, we know that this is not sustainable. Out of all the operations in production today in Western Australia, arguably there's only one in the southern side of Western Australia that's actually still having a sustainable business. In fact, this year we've seen many producers curtail production in an effort to stop hemorrhaging cash, with the most recent announcement this morning from Atlantic Lithium, who said they'll be placing Mount Cattlin into care and maintenance by mid-2025, further starving the supply in the market. My thoughts are with those workers at that and the communities in the Ravensthorpe and Hopetown community as they work through that news today. So let me talk about the company. Our Ewoyaa lithium project is located on the southern coast of Ghana in the central region. As Martin suggested, Ghana is a rich mining history with over a dozen gold mines, and they also have bauxite and manganese mines. In fact, they have recently overtaken South Africa as the largest producer of gold in the continent of Africa. We've started our field work on the project in 2016, which led to our first drilling campaign in 2018. And like so many other exploration stories, we almost walked away on the last couple of holes as we thought we missed the load. Luckily, we hit an interesting intercept, and since then we've drilled 170,000 meters on the property over 5 drilling seasons. We now have a JORC-compliant resource of 36.8 million tonnes at 1.24% lithium, of which just over 80% sits in the indicated and measured category. We have completed our DFS in June last year, and that has yielded some excellent economic outcomes. Most importantly, in a challenging price environment as we are now, we will have a very competitive operating cost. The low operating cost stems from 2 major factors: logistics and stripping ratio. Spodumene is a bulk commodity game, so the distance to port and the overburden you need to remove to access your ore body are key drivers of your cost, both of which is favorable to us as we are 110 kilometers from a port and we have a life of mine stripping ratio of 1 in 12. I won't bore the audience with the intricacies of the supply and demand in the lithium market, so I'll relate this to something we are all very familiar with: electric vehicles. Electric vehicles are the major driver for consumption of critical minerals, and specifically lithium. There are various configurations of battery chemistry, but the one commonality in all of those is lithium. The properties of this lightweight metal makes it ideal for mobile batteries, and the periodic table is not going to change anytime soon. To put this into perspective, for the 5-year period from 2012 to 2017, the electric vehicle production has increased from 100,000 vehicles to just over 1 million units on the road. Last year, in 2023, 14 million electric vehicles were sold worldwide, of which I've bought 4, I'm proud to say. The consensus is by 2030, this number will increase to 40 million units, which is approximately a 40% penetration rate of EVs into the automobile market. This means over the next 5 years, we need to triple the lithium supply to the market. Even if these estimates are far off and we only need to double the electric vehicles or supply of lithium for electric vehicles, in the next 5 years, we need to find and develop another Greenbushes, another Pulungura, another Wajana, another Atacama, another Olaroz, only to mention a few. I can count on my one hand how many operations or how many projects are ready to be executed and ready to capitalize on this growing demand over the next couple of years. We are perfectly situated for the growing supply in the US, in Europe, and very surprisingly and very pleasingly in Morocco as well, and of course in the short term to supply the Chinese market. From a capital structure perspective, we have approximately 650 million shares on issue and a market cap of just over 150 million Aussie dollars. Our registry is very tightly held, with the top 20 shareholders holding 67%. Notably, our largest shareholder is a South African-based miner, Ewoyaa International, who operates and have interest in several mines on the African continent. They have been a cornerstone investor over the past decade and have not only held their position, but they have periodically increased their stake within the creep provisions. Our valued JV partner on a project level, Atlantic Lithium, is at 5%, and we are very proud to have the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Ghana on our register with a stake of 3%. The executive team also have skin in the game, with 2% amongst the 3 members. As of the end of last quarter, we have a cash position of $12.7 million, and we are very prudent on our cash spend given the current market conditions. But importantly, very importantly, all the heavy lifting has been done to get us to an FID position, with only a few key permitting steps to be completed. We've built an executive team with international mining experience, but more importantly, the engine room, who's our boots on the ground in country, is led by Michael and Ahmed Salim. Michael has a bit of a habit operating in Africa like many of us, and he's notably worked in Tanzania, Mozambique, and in Ghana. Ahmed is a seasoned operational expert, which actually was recommended to me by Martin. Thank you very much. And he's been working in Ghana for many, many years. And he's such a great talent that I'd actually bring him to Australia, and he'd run any mine as good as any of the GMs we have here in Australia. As I mentioned, we completed our DFS last year. The mine will have a 12-year mine life, and we will produce 3.6 million tonnes of spodumene concentrate over this period. That is around 365,000 tonnes per annum, which will place us in the top 10 hard rock producers globally. We expect CapEx to be under $200 million, and most importantly, our all-in sustaining cost will be $675 per tonne. The process plant is not complex at all. We will have a 3-stage integrated crushing circuit and a simple dense medium separation circuit at the back. Since the completion of our DFS last year, we have worked with DRA in South Africa and in Ghana on value engineering and have been able to make several improvements to the constructability and, very important, the maintenance considerations of the plant. We have moved beyond the study world, and we have really been contemplating how do we build this thing and how is it going to run and how are we going to get the best utilization out of it. We have also spent some time looking at our mine plan, working on dilution models and optimizing the sequence and the schedule of the mining plan. Whilst this video play in the background, I will talk you through which access we have to infrastructure and how that aids in our operation. Getting our product from site to port is a relatively easy exercise. We are right on the N1 highway, within a kilometre from the access gates to site. So this is a bitumen road that stretches from west to east over the country, and that connects us to the port. We also have a power line running across the mine site, which we actually have to move a portion of, and we will tap into that. The deep sea port of Takoradi, which you're seeing on the video here now, they export at the moment about 5 million tonnes of bauxite and manganese, and they can easily double that capacity, leaving plenty of spare capacity to get our 365,000 tonnes or so of spodumene concentrate onto a ship. In addition to the infrastructure, the skilled workforce in Ghana is second to none. And we are very proud to say today 100% of our workforce in Ghana are nationals. So what does this good infrastructure and access to skilled labor mean for us? It translates to a low operating cost. In the first 2 years, we have an all-in sustaining cost of sub $500 per dry metric ton, gradually increasing over the life of mine as we access the deeper deposits. What you see on the screen here is an extract from our DFS, and we have since been able to fix the cost escalation in year 3, but I'll get in hot water with the ASX if I show you the real numbers here because we haven't published it yet. But essentially, we've had a high ratio of fine-grained material in that year 3 that we've been able to displace towards the end of the mine life through the optimization work that we have conducted. A thematic that I've heard at the conference over the last few days, and which we wholeheartedly abide by, is that doing business in Africa must be a win-win for the company, government, and most importantly, the community on whose land you operate. We started our negotiations with the government towards the end of 2022, which was led by Martin on behalf of the Minister. And by no means was that a straightforward exercise. However, give credit where credit is due. We were able to structure a deal which will make a meaningful contribution to the thriving economy of Ghana, and in particularly we volunteered and agreed for it to be written into the agreement that we will establish a community development fund which will see 1% of our revenue go towards generating long-lasting benefits for the community. Having worked with the community over the past years, we have agreed that this will not simply be a handout. It will be there to support entrepreneurs to start new businesses and service the mine. It will go towards education and training of the youth, and it will support young women to break the cycle and get out there into the workforce. We are extremely proud of this and this component of our agreement, so we thank the government for engaging in meaningful conversation on this respect. So whenever you tackle a project like this as a junior, it is wise to have strategic partners and someone that brings something to the table. Firstly, our longest-standing partnership is with Assor, who brings the know-how of how to operate large assets in Africa. Then we have the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Ghana, MIF, as a strategic investor on both the parent company and soon as well on the project level, de-risking political interference. We also have Piedmont Lithium, who has fronted just over 60% of the $60 million we've spent on the project to date, and must fund a further $110 million, which is approximately 60% of the total build cost, if they wish to get access to 50% of the offtake and increase their ownership in the project from 22.5% to 50%. Then lastly, the next partner we are working on at the moment is an offtaker. Your product has to go somewhere and we must have a customer. We've been running a competitive offtake process over the last 8 months, and we are looking to secure a prepayment of $75 to $100 million for 500,000 tons of concentrate, which is approximately 14% of the mine's output over the 12-year mine life. So if we bring all of this together, what does that mean from a funding perspective? So Piedmont Lithium will sole fund the first $70 million of the project. MIF will contribute $39 million to attain a 6% interest. That's the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Ghana. Ourselves and Piedmont will then split the remaining shortfall equally, and we intend to cover our $38 million through the prepayment agreement that we're currently negotiating. From a sales mix perspective, we will retain 20% of our production for the spot market and for exploring price. The other 80% will be sold at prevailing market rates with no discount to either Piedmont or the offtake deal we are currently negotiating, so all at full market rates. In the last 60 seconds or so, I just want to talk on the exploration activities that we are undertaking at the moment. So we have 509 square kilometers of portfolio in Ghana, all situated very much on a similar stream. So we have all of these sitting on the N1, all of them have a power line across them, all of them are close to the coast, and all of them are very close to an export facility. We've recently started doing some groundwork at Senior Baraku, and we've sampled over 8,000 samples in that area to identify drilling targets for the future. I love this graph. A couple of very interesting things that it tells you. The first one is that from the first MRE in 2020, the grade that we've produced over all the 5 upgrades we've done stayed relatively consistent from 1.3 to 1.24 in our last July MRE update. The second thing that this graph shows you that every time we go drilling, we find something. On average, between 200 and 250 tons are added to our resource for every single meter that we drill consistently. And then last thing we see out of this, we've been growing the component of measured and indicated resources consistently from 33% to now 81% of our total resource sits in measured and indicated. And just before I close off, we've recently been awarded 2 licenses in Côte d'Ivoire, and we currently have a team of 6 exploration geologists working the ground there, doing field work and mapping to identify targets for the future. So if I close off in 3 sentences or less, why do I think Atlantic Lithium has a good thing going here? Firstly, in the near future, we will see a rebound in the lithium pricing. We have a low-cost project that can fill the gap in one of the best jurisdictions in Africa. Thank you very much.